Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is, of course, Monday review time. As you can see, I am once again joined by Rhys from German Gills. So if you have
Hello.
not already, go and check out his channel, drop a follow, drop a subscribe, and watch his live show from the game at the weekend, where unfortunately it was a first defeat in five for Neil Harris's men as we came back empty-handed from Field Mill after a 2-0 defeat against Nigel Clough's playoff chase in Mansfield Town. Slightly different setup this week. I was unable to travel to the game. I have not watched it back in full, so we will be relying on Rhys's knowledge and expertise. I will be filling in the gaps. I've watched the extended highlights. So more of a question and answer session, I suppose, today, Rhys.
Yep.
One thing I can do is 2 o'clock, as we always do. The team news came out Saturday afternoon. No changes. It was exactly the same 11 as the team that had beaten Crawley not 7 days previously. So it was Glenn Morris in goal, a back four of Robbie McKenzie, Max Emer, Connor Masterson, and David Tatonda, a midfield quartet of Sean Williams, the captain, Dom Jeffries, Timothy Dieng, Alex McDonald, and Tom Nichols and Ollie Hawkins were both fit to start, having come off or struggled with injuries in the latter part of last week's victory over the men from West Sussex. For me, no real surprises. I know there's been talk of George Lapsley coming into the 11, but I think Neil alluded to it in the week, Rhys, that he's been struggling with a slight tight groin and also, I think, some sort of illness during the week. So it made sense that he was on the bench again, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was this big old hoo-ha, was Nichols going to be fit or not as well? And I think this just comes down to, like, he's just had played a lot of games recently. But there's also the element of the mind games. I don't know if that really exists at this level. I don't know, but it's quite possible. But it was you know what? I was quite pleased to see the same structure. People may criticise that actually and say, well, actually, therefore we're predictable to play against, and it's a fine balance, isn't it? So you might be predictable playing against, but it might also work. It worked the last 4 games, so you know. You don't want to break something that's already working, But
Exactly. And
that's kind of my
hindsight's a
thoughts on that.
wonderful tool, isn't it, after the
It
event? But I'm
certainly
sure
is.
we'll get onto that later on in the episode. First half, I've written down key points that I've seen from the extended highlights. Obviously, I want you to sort of give us the feedback in terms of the performance. There was talk on Twitter of a potential penalty share. I think that the tweet was somewhere along the lines of David Tatonda's been tripped in the box, but he's got himself back up and clipped across. We'll get on to more penalty chat later in the video. Was it something that you at the time thought, oh, that should be a spot kick, or was it just one of them defenders coming together or players coming together and we get on and we man up and carry on with the game?
It raised my eyebrows. It's got my attention. But it was just a hometown shout, if that's probably the best way to describe it,
Okay.
But it's funny though, because we'll talk about the other penalty shouts. If the penalties were in different orders, then maybe this one is a bit different. It would have been soft if it was given. I think it's argy-bargy in the box, and it's one of those ones where I think actually if you put it on the outside of the box, is that even a foul? Probably not. You just get on with it. So I think it's just a coming together and part and parcel of that game. I think you got. I'd be very surprised if any referee would give that one. I think, I don't think it was a penalty, but it definitely is one. The motion of the play and the movement of the players and the coming together, you can see why from certain angles it might have been given. It might have been given a penalty, but if we'd have conceded that kind of penalty, we'd have been having a different discussion. Well, we might do anyway.
That's always the thing, isn't it? If you see one in your box or the opposition box, you have to try and flip it around and say, what would you think? So it seems that potentially the referee, we think, has made the correct call on that occasion.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Just about.
Fair enough. It just seemed to be, looking at Twitter, David Tatonda was involved in everything in the first 10 minutes, because I think shortly after they put a dangerous ball into our box that I've seen on the extended highlights, and it was a good header, and it looks like it might have just been looping over Glenn Morris, but it was Tatonda that got back towards the line and managed to head it clear for another set piece.
Yeah, no, that sort of it was a centre stage. If there was one player you said who's the main guy in this game, and Tatonda was the one that just was everywhere and was the name that was being battered around the whole game. He was heavily involved until he got subbed off. It was a lot going on, and both positive and negative. Actually, he had quite a turbulent game in that sense.
Yeah, because the next occasion, which sort of only 10, 15 minutes into 90 minutes, is never ideal. He picked up a booking, and it seemed that it was fairly deserved. I'm not sure if you saw it on the iFollow coverage, but
no, it was a funny one. It was in a motion of play again. It was the ball was on the right hand side, and as the Mansfield are attacking, and I think the ball comes into the box, and there's the camera pans it, and you don't see what happens, unfortunately, but you do see a Mansfield Town player on the floor. I can't think who it was. It might have been Hewitt. I can't quite remember.
Okay.
But But it you know, there was a bit of a loud shout from the hometown and home fans, and you think, oh, maybe there is something going there. And the referee wasn't. He did it really quickly. He gave the yellow card pretty sharpish. So when it's like that, you don't see it. You kind of just go, yeah, fair enough. It's a yellow card. But I didn't see it, unfortunately.
No, that's fine. No problem. Obviously, we know that you're stuck with one camera angle, so it's difficult. But you've seen more of the game than I have, so it's good to get them different views. It seemed then, looking at the Twitter coverage and what we were reading on social media, that Mansfield were growing into the game and started to boss possession, started to boss territory, and were pinning us back somewhat. And it was only a couple of minutes after the Tatonda caution. I think there was a good chance that Morris made a decent save, but unfortunately that sort of reprieve only lasted another minute or so, and then Ollie Clark opened the scoring. Now, I've watched that back, the goal. It just looks a bit scruffy to me from our point of view. I think it's Jeffries again tries to clear it, it gets charged down, then they retain possession on the halfway line. I think it gets played out to their right hand side. My question be, if we're being nitpicky, was do we do enough to close the ball down? We let a very sort of routine 1-2 get played. Do we then close the shot down? Whether it takes a slight nick off, it might have been Willow who's trying to get out, clips the near post, goes in. It just looked like a bit of a, like I say, scruffy goal to concede. What were your thoughts on?
So my thoughts. Yeah, so my thoughts on this one, what Mansfield Town were doing really well yesterday is they were really good at just recycling the play over and over again, because they had the foothold in the midfield. So when an attack came down or came through and we managed to, do a half clearance of defensive duty, it would fall back to Mansfield. They'd put it back in again, and they were just through attrition, essentially, were breaking us down and putting us out of position and making us huff and puff. And essentially, if you that first goal is the best example of that, because there was a decent save by Morris, and then it got half cleared, and then it went back out again, and they put the ball back in, and eventually it led to the deflected shot. But it was just constant pressure and pressure and pressure that eventually they were going to find a way through, just like through erosion, essentially. And that's what their first goal was basically made of just blasting your way through and until you get it in the back of the net. And unfortunately, the goal, which was deflected, it's one of those ones. It was a really weak shot, which Morris would have easily saved, I think. But it took a deflection. I can't work out if it was a Gills player or a Mansfield player, but it sent Morris the wrong way and just nestled in the back of the net. Unfortunately, but it was a really, really scrappy goal. But on the balance of play, it's probably just about deserved, actually, because we really hadn't had much leading up to that, if I'm totally honest. And Mansfield had a real foothold in the game at that point. Yeah,
that's the feeling I was getting watching, like the tweets coming through from both clubs I was trying to watch, so you can sort of gauge it from both sides. And I was following a Twitter fan page of Mansfield, which was called Mansfield Musings, and we'll talk about them in a couple of minutes. And the next big moment in the game is essentially what sees Mansfield over the line. This was what Mansfield Musings tweeted, and people will know the subject that we're getting onto from this comment. Looked a typical striker and defender tussle, unexpected penalty. Mansfield fans are obviously on social media saying they think it's a penalty. For me, it's an absolutely horrendous decision. And Lucas Aikins, the fact that he doesn't even appeal, and he looks pretty much surprised that he's been given a spot kick after trying to roll Maxima in the box. I thought it was just good defending. Ball's played in. I think Aikins is at it as well. He's backing in, and he's probably got a bit of shirt as well. Amar's probably got a bit of shirt as well. He tries to roll. It's not changed the momentum or the direction of Aikins' movement for me. And then Amar pinches it really well. That's my opinion of the game. I'm a centre half, so I'm going to stick up for centre half. So you stick up for goalies, and I understand that. And I know we can say, if it was at the other end, would we be shouting penalty?
Do you know what?
I'm not sure I would have been, because I literally couldn't see anything wrong with what Maxima's done. He's being pinned back, so of course he's going to be handsy. He's going to be trying to wrestle his way to try and get round and pinch the ball, but he's not gone through the back of Aikins. He's waited until it's rolled, and then he's cleared it from the side. For me, it's just a poor decision that ultimately not cost us the game, Mansfield fans, before you jump down my throat, because you were outside for 90 minutes, and I get that. But it's a huge call 10 minutes before half time. If we go in 1-0, we're still in the game. At 2-0, it suddenly becomes a bigger task.
Yeah, the thing is with this penalty, it's what really frustrated me about it was I could see it coming, actually, but it's the typical defender of Max Amer. And I would say, if a referee's given that as a penalty, he set himself on on an interesting pedestal to be able to give. He has to give penalties and free kicks of that standard now the whole game through.
You'll be giving 15 penalties a week, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for me, I mean, I think I said on my video yesterday, I always like to say what percentage of referees do I think give that penalty, and I think I said like 10% or 5%. Like, and even when I reflect on that, I go, no, maybe just one referee gives that.
Just that one, unfortunately,
just that specific one. But for me, actually, it was good defending, and and it was just a bit of a shock to me. But weirdly, as well, I could see it coming, because I was kind of, when I was watching it, I was thinking, Max, don't foul, don't foul, don't foul. And as I was saying that, he wasn't fouling. And then the ref gets a pen. I'm like, what? Okay.
Well, some Mansfield fans have replied to me sort of Saturday night and Sunday and said, oh, Amar was warned previously at a corner for pulling shirt. Well, that doesn't mean that you can then give a penalty 10 minutes later because he might have pulled someone's shirt in a separate incident. Two wrongs don't make a right at the end of the day. For me, I just think it's a poor refereeing decision. Mansfield look as shocked as we do. And 2-0 at half time made a mountain to climb. I think we had a couple of half chances looking at the highlights and the tweets. I remember Tim Dieng half chance header drifted wide.
Yeah.
And I think there was a Ollie Hawkins header as well. There was the keeper.
Yeah, straight to the goalkeeper. There was a powerful header, I must say. He really got on the end of it, but he couldn't do anything more. It's one of those, if he floats it in the top right or left-hand corner, it might have gone in. But overall, it was. I just want to say one thing about the penalty. I've got to give a little bit of credit to Morris. He dived the right way and he nearly got something to it. It was just such a ping penalty from Atkins.
Didn't he save one from Atkins in the home game?
He might well have done, actually. That's a good point.
Did just before they scored, and he's got a good record this season. We know that. Unfortunately, he was unlucky at the county ground a couple of weeks ago against Charlie Austin, but he has saved two this season.
But according to the Mansfield Town commentary team, the keeper dived the wrong way. So
fair enough. Unless they mean he's dived the wrong way because he's trying to save it. But I don't know, what a weird thing to say.
Yeah, I've got a few things to say about that Mansfield Town commentary team, actually, but we'll get on to that.
I've written it down for you. You have mentioned that you want to have a little word about the home commentary team. That was half time. Second half, we didn't make any changes immediately, which, again, there was people on Twitter saying, why have we not made wholesale changes at the break? Because we have to remember that we weren't quite at it last week against Crawley, and we're big enough to sit here and say that. But what Neil Harris did really well last week was he tweaked it and he got us further up the pitch, and we were brilliant second half, and we comfortably won that game against Crawley. No disrespect to Crawley Town, Mansfield Town have got better players. That's why they're sixth or seventh in the league, and Crawley are down in around us in 22nd, 20th in the table at the moment. So the thing is, if we make loads of changes and it doesn't work, we go, oh, why didn't you give the players a chance to carry on and try and get themselves out of trouble? If you don't make the changes and then it goes wrong, you're moaning that we've not made wholesale substitutions at the break.
But the other thing, just quickly on that as well, is that the last sort of 5 minutes, we actually did build a bit of momentum going into the end of the first half. So you can kind of sort of see, actually, we're starting to get a foothold in the end of the game and into the half here. So if we can continue that going into the second half, then actually you kind of want that. But we were knocking the door the last 5 minutes. Actually, that's when the Ollie Watkins header came across and went down the throat of Flinders. But we were building a bit of momentum. Right,
Rhys means Ollie Hawkins. We've not signed the Aston Villa striker, Jill Spence.
What did I say?
Ollie Watkins.
Oh, sorry. Ollie Watkins.
That'd be nice. I'll take him. He's decent.
We'll have him.
But yeah, that's it. And if it's 1-0, no one's demanding wholesale changes. So the only reason it's gone to 2 is because of a poor refereeing decision. So it's fine lines. Unfortunately, we came out on the wrong side of a couple. We probably weren't at it in terms of what we've seen over the last few weeks. But I've seen tweets like, oh, we were rubbish at home to Hartlepool. We got bashed by Colchester. We were rubbish at Swindon second half. We were crap last week against. Where's the perspective gone in the game? Honestly, Hartlepool, they hit the post, and Morris made one save.
Yeah,
and had a goal disallowed that's offside. So we had plenty of chances that game. Could have been outside at half time. Scored 2 good goals. We went to Colchester, soaked up pressure against the side that's playing really well. Professional away performance. Beat Crawley. They were better than us first half. Didn't score. We were better than them second half. Scored. Swindon. If it's 0-0 or 1-0, no one bats an eyelid. Of course, it's frustrating that we've chucked away a 2-goal lead, but I just get a little bit bored of everything has to be someone's fault. I don't know what your thoughts are on it. It just
Yeah,
becomes a bit tedious for me.
It's really tedious, and it is very boring to read that, actually, because let's not forget, like, football is a results industry. We have to remember that. And yeah, sometimes, and there are times we will play better against Crawley and against Hartlepool and lose. That will happen.
Yeah,
But that's
exactly.
that's what football is. You can't. What I find people are doing at the moment, some fans, and I think this happens across a lot of the football league, is that people start to analyze games in isolation and not the bigger picture. And I think, actually, yeah, you can do that in isolation, but that doesn't tell the full story. I think we need to take a step back and look at, as you said, the bigger picture, and look at that recent form, or the long-term form, the change that we've had at Christmas. Like, come on.
Exactly. We're going along at 2 points a game over the last 5, which is top 7 form. 2 points a game over a 46-game season is 92 points. I mean,
Yeah.
We've had plenty of opportunity to moan about this football club over the last 6 months. This last 4 or 5 weeks has not been that.
No.
Just, I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting old and grouchy. I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, we've gone away. The second half, Glenn Morris made a really good save. Sun decided to come out just after the break, didn't it? And he had to fling up an arm from a header. But I thought after that, we grew into the game really well from obviously what I've read. Again, I don't know what you think. There was a triple change shortly after that chance.
Yes.
Dave Saton to come off because he was on a booking. Jeffries and McDonald were the other two that were sacrificed, and we threw on Shay Alexander to go. I think he played right back, and Mackenzie switched sides. And brought on Aidan O'Brien and George Lapsley to try and add some cut and thrust in the final third.
Just for what it's worth, there, the second half in its entirety for Gillingham, we had a couple of a good flurries forward, a few opportunities, but actually one of the things I identified watching it, we just looked like a team that had not much chemistry. And I think what was kind of exposed was that these players are brand new to us, and I think that lack of chemistry and cohesion between the new people and the current squad probably was it was on show. And there was a few, I think Brian had a couple of poor passes trying to find a couple of the forwards, and it just didn't feel very natural. I think it felt a little bit forced, and it was just, I think it's just a lack of experience of playing one another really did show through yesterday, particularly that second half, actually.
Yeah, and it's a great point as well, because we can sit here and we can say we weren't good enough against Mansfield, and that's fine. But there's a bigger picture here. Mansfield, I know we took 2 of their players off them in the January transfer window, Hawkins and Lapsley. But this squad has been put together over multiple transfer windows and multiple seasons. They're well drilled at what they do. They were very good when they came to Kent in the summer or early autumn and beat us 2-0 comfortably as well. So they're miles ahead of us in terms of their process. That's why they're challenging in the top 7. And yes, we've got excuses or reasons, the sense that there was no money to spend and the club was on its arse, for want of a better phrase, in terms of structure behind the scenes. And it was probably Paul Fisher and Neil Harris doing everything between the two of them during the first half of the campaign, which is never going to work. 14 players got on that pitch for us against Mansfield, Rhys. 7 of them, and I'm not including Glenn Morris in that, otherwise it's 8, arrived in January. So it's going to take time. It's never going to be instant. If someone had said, you're going to take 10 points from 5 games up to Mansfield away, I'd have bitten their arm off. Absolutely bitten their arm off. So again, the perspective just seems to, we're not going to win every game. If people think that, then they're deluded, absolutely deluded.
No team wins every game. You want to go and win every game, but it's not going to happen. No. It's not going to happen, though. And also, what you need to remember as well, if Mansfield, like you say, are challenging for playoffs, but down at the bottom, we're beating teams around us. That's actually really important. I've been looking at the bottom half of the table where they keep going, we've got to play them, we've got to play them, we've got to play them, we've got to play them. They're the games we'll win. If we have to play Orient again at some point. If we lose 2-0, they're top of the table, or they're the top of the table. Fine. Northampton again. If we lose to these teams, do you know what? If we put a good showing, fine. We're not expected to beat them, but actually, we're doing the most important victories. We're beating the Hartlepools, we're beating the Crawleys, and we're beating the Colchesters at the moment. They're the teams we need to beat. We're going to play Harrogate. We've got Grimsby on Tuesday. We've got Rochdale on Saturday. They're the ones that if we lose those, then we can raise the eyebrows and go, "Oh, why did that happen?" Yeah. But at the moment, that hasn't happened. So we're beating
Mansfield
the
doesn't
teams
define our season, does it? Mansfield defeat doesn't. If you choose to say Rochdale, Mansfield, you can win 1 and lose 1. You're saying Rochdale's the win every game because you're essentially taking 6 points off them because you're stopping them from gaining and you're picking up 3 as well. Whereas if we beat Mansfield and Rochdale win the same day, we're not getting any further ahead of them.
Exactly.
So you're opening the gap up by 3 points if you beat Rochdale. So that's the important thing. And people seem to forget that Swindon are a good side and chasing the playoffs as well. And we went there and we were very, very good for an hour. All right, last half hour they bossed it, but that's football, surely.
Yes, happens. It happens. And and to get I would have taken a point away from Swindon any day of the week, really.
Exactly. Like I said, and if it's 0-0, no one bats an eyelid. It's a great point. But because we were 3-1 up, people want to start criticising and stuff like that. But these tactics went to Colchester the week before Swindon and picked up a clean sheet, and no one says a word. These tactics that we changed at half time, we didn't make any personnel switches, went and won us a game against Crawley 7-8 days ago. So, like I said at the top of the show, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Everyone can know everything after the event, but I just think people need to just get a grip a little bit. And I'll probably get shot down on Twitter and whatever, but that's fine. I know we all see it differently, and I understand that. But 2 points a game over 5 games, I can't get away from that. Anyway, back to the game. We're having a bit of a rant today, aren't we?
We are.
It's nice to vent sometimes.
It is nice to vent. You're right.
There was another penalty shout. I think Jules Lapsley was at the heart of a couple of things when he came on. He had the header that Scott Flinders made a very good save from. Unfortunately, I think if it was just a couple of yards either side from Jules, then it goes in and we're back in the game. But it's right above Flinders and he flings up an arm. There was a penalty shout. He sort of the defender's the wrong side and sort of bundles into him a little bit. For me, it's the right call. It's not a penalty.
It's not a penalty,
but I think you're going to say the same as what I'm going to say.
But it is a penalty because of the precedent the referee set previously in the first half. That's what I think.
Exactly that. If you're going to give the one on Akins, you have to give the one on Lapsley.
Yep.
So, and again, 2 wrongs don't make a right, but it comes back to consistency, and it's frustrating that you're not getting it when something that's essentially as soft or even softer, not an hour previously, has been given.
Yeah, then that's it. No, it's not a penalty any other week, as much as the first one that was given is not a penalty. But if you set your standard as the first penalty, the second one, by your criteria as a referee, must also be a penalty.
You've got to give none or both.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
After that, I thought the game just sort of drifted to a natural conclusion. They saw it out fairly well, made changes. I know we brought a couple of more players on. I think Abrahams came on late on. Robbie McKenzie had a drilled shot that Flinders fell on fairly comfortably, and the game drifted to its full-time whistle. To sum up, Mansfield deserved the point Saturday. I've got no qualms about that.
Agreed. But I absolutely agree. There was, like you said, something really important earlier. They're a team that have been building for over years and over seasons, so they've got to this point, and so they know how to play as Mansfield. They know each other. And because of that, they use that experience with one another to be able to comfortably beat us yesterday. So for me, it's a 3 points that they ultimately deserved, and we unfortunately deserve to go back with diddly squat to Kent. So,
but there were signs that we wouldn't have seen a month ago, 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, where we've been able to bring people on, Lapsleys, O'Briens, Abrahams, that can come on and try and affect the game in a positive way and get us back into it. And like we said, if the Jules Lapsley header goes in, it's a very different second half with 20 minutes to play. It's fine lines again, isn't it? And sometimes you come out on the wrong side of them. You just have to dust yourself off and say, fair play, hands up, we move on.
Absolutely. And the thing is, and what's the difference of watching that second half compared before Christmas, watching that second half, if it were to be, is that watching it yesterday, even when it was 80 minutes on the clock, I'm sitting here going, we could get back into this. We just need a lucky moment. Before Christmas, I'm switched off and I'm just waiting for the whistle. This time I'm going, you know what? It can happen. It might happen. You never know. But I have that. It can happen because of the squad that we've built now.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference for me, is that we still have a little bit of hope if we go behind. Whereas if we go behind, as we've seen previously throughout the whole season, it's done.
Yeah, 1 goal killed us essentially for 5-6 months.
Yeah, exactly. But that didn't feel like that yesterday. Even we had a few chances. If we got a little bit of luck, who knows? It didn't fall our way, and Mansfield were the better team.
We move on. And if we win on Tuesday, everyone forgets about it, and Neil Harris is the best manager in the world again.
Of course.
Maybe not for some.
No.
I think I'm similar. At full time, I tweeted, I said, it's one of the bumps in the road that Neil's talked about. We're not going to win every game. There's going to be ups and downs between now and the end of the season. But I certainly felt a lot more positive after getting beat 2-0 by Mansfield than I did a month ago when we'd lost 1-0 to Stevenage, and there was absolutely no hope moving forward.
No, absolutely. I think what I was thinking about yesterday, it's nice to be able to, in the sense that we can say we've lost a game and it's a bump in the road, rather than saying, "Oh, we've lost another one." You know what I mean?
And it's terminal, because it was
Yeah,
terminal before Christmas. Yeah,
exactly. It's not
and the fact
terminal.
that we're disappointed to have only gone to Mansfield and got beat is almost pleasing, in the sense that we are now be able to compete with the teams in the top portion of the table. Whereas we wouldn't have taken 600 3 months ago to
No
Mansfield.
way.
There'd have been a couple of hundred hardcore that have done it every game this season, and I said it on Gills in the pub the other night. Yeah, exactly. Tip my hat to you. But we've got people going there because they believe in this football team again.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean we're going to automatically get everything or something every game, but there's a belief. Anyway, there might be another rant in a little while, but not at the team and not at the manager. You watch the game as a whole. We usually do 3 sections. We do best opposition player, Gills ratings, Gills man of the match. We'll gloss over it a bit quicker today. I've got one for this though. Mansfield Maestro.
That's a good one. You found one. A good bit, nice bit of alliteration.
Who was the standout for you from the Stags' point of view?
Oh, I got 2. I'd like to pick between. I thought Elliot Hewitt was pretty solid. Actually, a lot of work from him. Coming down the right hand side, it was tasty. It was causing a lot of problems for us actually, and testing David Tutonda quite a lot down that side, and I thought he was pretty solid. And I mean, it could be free, but I was again impressed with Atkins. I thought he was causing a lot of problems. I mean, ultimately he won the penalty, whatever that is, but he was in and around the play the whole time. And is it Clark, the other one, the captain? I think he is. He was
scored the opener. Yeah,
scored the opener. That was it. Yeah, he was him who scored. Like, I just thought those 3 together were pretty solid actually. And yeah, I mean, they ran the show essentially in the middle of the park. I mean, it's hard to pick out the best one. If I was going to pick one, I was really impressed with Hewitt, actually. I really was. I'd love him to play for Gills. I think he looked brilliant, in my opinion, but amongst other really good performances. So it's hard to single out
They're a
one
good
person.
side. They're a very good side. They've got experience all over the park. But in terms of outfield players, you picked the 3 players that got the highest 3 ratings for Mansfield on the app that I use. So,
oh, really? Okay.
There we go. He knows what he's doing. Gills fans, can subscribe to his channel.
So if we're
going Hewitt, then 90 minutes played for Elliot Hewitt, 50 touches, 63% pass completion, 2 key passes, 50% strike rate in terms of crosses, 1 shot on target. Ground duels, he won 5 out of 7, so about 80%, and he won 50% of his aerial duels. So it's a good all-round performance from a good player in a good side that, as we've already said, are chasing the playoffs for a reason. We'll go to Gills now, back to them. Player ratings is, we usually like to do it to compare. So let's spend more time on who you thought was the Gills' best player today. Then we can leave the ratings to one side for this week, because it's not going to create any debate, because I haven't got any.
No, I mean, and I would probably tarnish the whole team with a similar number, to be fair. But there is one person that, you have to try and find something. And do you know what? Right, the only person that I thought was pretty solid and did his job mainly, I mean, Robert McKenzie was okay. It didn't stand out, but for me, he wasn't that bad. He just did his job essentially as a role as a right back, did his thing, and he put a few lethal crosses in here and there, and made a few good passes forward. So he did it for me. Did his job quietly. And this might get a bit of gripe, but actually I thought Tutonda's presence on the pitch, both it gave us an advantage, because he was eroding a lot of the Mansfield town down the right side. He was tough to beat, but also he tripped himself up a lot of the time as well by obviously getting booked, and then by that nature couldn't play 100% like he normally would. But it was a lot of, what's it, fight, I suppose, and passion you could see from Tutonda. He was really involved with that game. But apart from that, I mean, Mansfield shut out Hawkins pretty well. Nichols found it hard to create anything. And I have to say, I'm sorry to say, it was Dieng and Williams' not best performance at all. It just didn't work in the middle of the park for them, really. So for me, the ones that stood out is Robin McKenzie did okay. I think that's the best I can do, apart from a good Glenn Morris save. And that's maybe the other one. That's it.
Again, the app that I use, Mackenzie got a 7 and Glenn Morris got a 6.9. So you pick the two that they give the highest ratings to. So we'll look at Robbie Mackenzie because he was the highest. 88 minutes played. He was sacrificed very late on as we chased, trying to get back into the game. 4 clearances, 2 interceptions, 1 tackle, 63 touches, 42% pass completion. Decent percentage for long balls for a fullback. It was 40%. And out of all the duels that he competed in, he won 7 out of 10. So 70% duels were won. So yeah, sounds like a fairly good choice to me.
Yeah.
Before we finish up, and we know this is slightly shorter this week because there's not a comparison or 2 different views of the game because I'm working off of limited information. We've gone over a couple of bits. Max Emar is a subject that comes up. There's one individual on Twitter, Daniel Young. I'm going to name him. That's fine. That's his opinion. I've got no issue with that having his opinion. We all have different opinions. Went to absolute town on Max Emar on social media after Saturday. He's this, he's that. He should never play for us. My argument with that is Peter Taylor brought him in on loan. Justin Edinburgh trusted him. Adi Pennock trusted him. The Gang of Four trusted him. Steve Lovell trusted him. Steve Evans trusted him. Now Neil Harris trusts him. You don't play 400 professional games if you've not got ability. And it's the second time in a week that I'm having to have this conversation because there was a comment made at the Crawley game as well by someone who said he's got no footballing ability. We've all got some footballing ability. Mine's a lot lower than a lot of people. I get that. I'm a Sunday League plodder. But to say that about a player that's played nearly 400 or more senior games, he's nearly 400 games for us, I think. I find it astonishing. And it comes back to what you said. Yes, we can analyse performances individually and collectively for one game. But you also have to take into account the bigger picture. Maxime has been superb for us for the last couple of months. I think he's kept 12, 13 clean sheets this season. He's going along at about 35, 40% strike rate for clean sheets. So 15 a season over a league campaign, which is really good. I can understand people digging him out a little bit if he's poor for the penalty, but the penalty comes from a poor refereeing decision. Nothing that Max Emar's done wrong for me. Again, it's this frustration with everyone has to be blamed for something all the time. I just don't get it.
No. Can I just chip in here? Just one thing.
Sorry, I've gone off. It winds me up.
And it winds me up as well. And, but in the same grace, I always like to look at what's the other extreme example is. How do you flip this? Like you can single out players for great performances. I can't remember on Twitter people saying he's had a fantastic game today. No. He's been a real like wall in defence, or he's made some really good defensive decisions. I don't see that. And for me, if you're going to be critical about someone, you need to be consistent with your approach, and that you need to see the other side of it as well and praise players if you're going to be like that on individual performances when they do have one. And I just don't. I see there are people just hammer one player all the time, and Maxime, it seems to be that the person that gets a lot of whack for some reason. And it's like, are you saying you're not allowed to have a bad game? Are you like that's football? That happens on an individual basis, like on an isolation basis. You're going to have a bad game every now and again. They're all human after all. Come on,
and they're playing for league. He's been a League One and League Two player for us, Maxime.
Exactly.
If he wasn't having bad games and chucking in the odd 5 out of 10 performance, he'd be playing in the Championship or the Premier League, not for us.
Yeah, and I think you summed up quite nicely there, actually. And I just think people need to take a little bit of perspective if they're behaving in that way in the critique of a player's performance, because it's not, for me, it's not an acceptable opinion to be hammering a player over and over again. And I'm sure there's lots of people that do that across all clubs, actually. But for me, I think it's unfair. He's been a very good servant. And
I mean, I criticise players, you criticise players, but I like to think I try and do it constructively. But again, it comes back to you can't pick and choose. Last week at Crawley game, people are digging out Max Emar for making something that they perceive to be an error. Connor Masterson done it 2 or 3 times first half when he was off the pace. Absolutely nothing said from the same people. Again, it comes back to what you said about consistency. If you're going to do it for one, do it for all. If not, then shh.
Yeah, exactly. And it's exactly my thoughts on that as well. And also on top of that as well, I finally caught up with Welcome to Wrexham, that series. And I want to say, if you've got an opportunity to watch that, please do. But these players, they get to read social media. They may try and avoid it as much as possible. But when people are saying comments like this, what is actually, you're making it worse for everyone, because they will then go out on that field with a lot of pressure. There's a lot of the Wrexham players. I think there's a Dibble, the goalkeeper for Wrexham. He was a second choice goalkeeper, and a lot of the fans were giving him gripe on Twitter about him being one of the worst goalkeepers Wrexham ever had, and he hated having to go and pay for Wrexham. And he was the only goalkeeper at the time because the first one was injured. I mean, imagine that going into work, knowing that everyone that's watching you is on your back and not supportive of you. It's one of the worst environments you could ever imagine, but you have to go and do it. And I wonder if fans keep continuing to do that with and isolating certain players, actually it's going to backfire significantly in that sense, unless they've managed to completely shut themselves out from social media entirely. And even that might not work, because you hear it individually from the stands as well. And I don't believe players shut themselves off from the heckles from the stands, because
no, you're going to hear
they're going to hear it. And I just think you're making a rod for your own back in that sense. And I think you should always be supportive. And then in forums like this, where we can be constructive and take it in a larger perspective, that's much more beneficial for everyone included, not just singling out performances when it suits your narrative. And that's
of course
what I think.
And it comes back to consistency, which is all we want with anything, whether that's a refereeing performance, our own team's performance. We want our teams to be consistent, because that means you win 4 points. And I've said earlier in the season, it frustrates me sometimes when players don't come on social media to apologise or whatever, when we're not winning games, because they're quick to put up photos and the 3 points when they've won football matches. So you have to take the rough with the smooth. I get that, whether you're a player, a supporter, or whatever. But again, it's the consistency we're talking about when you're criticising a player. You can't criticise him 1 week because he's been poor, but then not say that he's been good the week after. And I think that's where my frustration is born from, is a lack of consistency again in a lot of aspects of reacting to performances and results.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's that, and if you have that consistency, then anything that anyone says has much more value, and their opinion becomes more valuable in my estimation. If you're very hit and miss, or you're very cherry picking, then your opinion for me is not as valuable and not noteworthy. And consistency is key when being a critic in not just football, but in any realm of work.
And I'm not
whatever.
Don't think I'm sitting here and digging out I know I've named Daniel, but it was because that was the prime example. So I've got. But we had a chat, Daniel and me, and another. I think I had a chat with Dean as well. I totally understand that different people have different opinions. That's what makes the world go round. And if it's done in the correct way, I'll have a discussion until the cows come home. That's why we all love social media. That's why we love football. But I just thought there was a massive overreaction to first defeat in 5 games against a very good side at League Two level over the weekend, and that was probably what frustrated me a little bit more, because this is a team that's so much better than what we had to sit and suffer from July, August, right through until Brad Gallinson took over 2 days before Christmas.
It's almost like we've forgotten what it was like before Christmas already.
Yes, and again, I understand that with better players, expectation raises, but this is still a work in progress. We're still in the bottom 2. This was never going to be, we're just going to turn up here, there, and everywhere and smash teams off the park, because number one, like we've said, it's a new set of players, so it's not going to work all the time straight away. And number 2, like you've mentioned, that's essentially not how football works at any level.
No, exactly. And yeah, I just hope moving forward that if you are going to make a comment on Twitter, if you are going to make a comment on Facebook, wherever you like to vent or like to discuss, we all want to hear people's opinions. I just want it to be more balanced and thoughtful, rather than just be very flippant and fickle. That's all.
Yeah, and just picking out one poor aspect of someone's performance that you perceive, rather than looking at the bigger picture and their whole game and that type of thing. 10 points from 15. Let's start trying to end this on a positive note. We're going along at 2 points a game over the last 5, 3 wins, a draw and a solitary defeat. I think there's how many games? Is it 18, 19 games left to play now in the season? Just bring the table up quickly.
Something like that, I think. And
28 we've played. So we've got 18 games left. So 36 points if we carry on at the same rate. And I'm not sitting here saying we're going to go along at 2 for the rest of the season. That would take us to 60 points, which
That's
would
been
drag
table.
us well clear of I don't think we need that many. I think
No.
sort of late 40s to 50 is going to be absolutely fine because only two sides get relegated. We play Grimsby Valentine's Day next Tuesday, and we play Rochdale away the following Saturday. Two big games, and like you said, they'll be more season defining. Grimsby are 17th, Rochdale are 24th. So they're the games that potentially define our season more than losing 2-0 to a side that could still get promoted. What's an acceptable points return for you from the next two games?
I've already got in my head 4. 4 is a win, the draw. That's what I want.
Yeah, I'd take that. I think that'd be absolutely fine. And if we win Tuesday night and Hartlepool drop points, we come out the bottom two, which again would be a massive fillip for the group, just to see our heads above water, so to speak. One last thing before I go, and I've written it down because you said you wanted to talk about it, and you had to listen to me have a bit of a rant today. You wanted to talk to us quickly about the opposition commentary team on iFollow over the weekend.
I mean, it's quite a specific thing, but actually my tweet I put about it got a little bit of momentum because I don't know. I've listened to a couple of every now and again. I like to listen to the away or the opposition the commentary.
Yep.
I've listened. I've say for example, last season I thought I listened to the Wimbledon one and I thought they were really, really good. And I've listened to the Charlton one once and I thought they were excellent. Very well balanced approach, very professional. But for example, yesterday's one felt more like a fan zone experience. And the reason I say that is the commentary team, we talk about balanced approaches of how we should, if it works one way, it should work the other as well. And unfortunately, the Mansfield commentary did not have that. So, for example, they were saying the referee was very lenient to give one of their players a yellow card, and I thought, well, he was very strict in the first half to concede, but to give you guys a penalty. And when there was a moment where George Lapsey pulled down one of their, I think it might have been Hewitt, I can't remember who it was, pulled him down, and he was going sort of like into our half, and the commentary team, I couldn't believe this. Rather than being professional and saying that's a foul and looks like it's going to be a yellow, they went up in arms and as if they were shouting out of their seats in the stadium. And for me, if I'm listening to that as a neutral fan, I know it's not aimed at neutral fans, but as someone listens to that as a potentially neutral fan, I think it's actually a very unprofessional approach to have a fan zone style commentary team doing that game. And for me, if I heard, like, for example, I had Peter Lloyd acting like that, I would be embarrassed to a certain extent my club's behalf on that. But I just thought it was way over the top. They reacted to everything in a very sort of loud and direct way. And also what they were doing, which I really dislike, is they were saying what the Mansfield Town fans were singing to players or to the referee or to the away fans, which I've never heard a commentary team ever do that before. I mean, I thought it was a very unusual approach as a commentary team, and I just unfortunately I don't know why I listened to it in two halves. I don't know why I did that, but I was just so surprised by it. I thought surely they would improve their approach, but no, they were, in my opinion, unprofessional is very strong. They weren't unprofessional. I just thought they were not the pedigree which I would expect a.
So it's almost like they're approaching it like they're sat in the stands, like watching the game as a fan.
Yeah, and that's something that if that's your profession, I think you need to step away from that, and then you need to do a much more balanced approach. Even though you may support Mansfield Town, fine, but I think for me it wasn't the greatest listen as someone. Obviously as an opposition fan, but I think just in general as well. I can't imagine all of the commentators around the world behaving in such a way. Maybe unless you're maybe a Mexican commentator and shout that long goal every time. That's a cultural thing, maybe. I don't know. But this for me was, in my opinion, I'm sorry if they listen to this or any Mansfield fans that prefer that commentary. For me, it wasn't my biscuit, unfortunately.
Fair enough. We all see it different, don't we? But again,
Absolutely.
we've tried to be constructive with what we've said. Rhys, a pleasure as always. Really appreciate your input this week, obviously, because I didn't have time to watch the game back in full. Gills fans and anyone else who's listening, again, thank you. Don't forget to go and subscribe to Rhys. He is on Twitter and he is on Instagram and he is, of course, on YouTube. So go and give him a follow on all three platforms. Do not forget that all these videos are now in association with Art of Football. I will put the link to their website in the description at the bottom of this video. Go and check them out for all your hats, your hoodies, your bucket hats, your caps, retro football shirts, prints. They do some really good stuff on there. Be back Tuesday for a match day live. No Boz or Stocky this week, so you'll have to put up with me, I'm afraid, on my own. But we'll try and get a couple of other voices on before the game in the build-up. Rhys will obviously be doing his German Gills live reaction show, so that'll be something to look forward to as well, late Tuesday evening or Wednesday. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Please keep liking, subscribing to both channels and doing everything that you do, because as I say every time, this channel is absolutely nothing without people getting involved and interacting, even if I don't always agree with them. Keep the faith. We'll see you Tuesday for Matchday Live, and up the Gills.
Up the Gills.